We get a lot of requests from people to do documentaries on certain game studios, emails, Discord messages, random tweets. But over the years, hardly anyone has asked us to do a story on a publisher. I guess publishers are kind of boring, right? It's all about money and marketing, business deals. So it made sense to me that no one ever asks. But then there's this one company that people keep asking about. Hello and welcome to Dear Dwyery, the show where I, Danny O'Dwyer, force people in the games industry to talk to me about the stuff that they make. Today we're talking to Dave Oshry of New Blood Interactive, a company responsible for a very particular vibe of video game. Not necessarily even a genre or an art style, just a feeling. Like the way you felt when you flipped through an old PC gaming magazine in the late 90s and came across a live-action advertisement for Quake. That feeling in the cockles of your heart when you played a random FPS PC game from a demo disc and immediately connected with its dark and twisted vibe. New Blood Interactive makes modern versions of cool, dark PC games. They've made games like Dusk, a medieval, Ultra Kill, Gloomwood. Games with interesting looks, but equally interesting playstyles, throwbacks with 2 decades of modern design philosophy backing them. And their dedication to this vague corner of game design has helped them to grow a dedicated fanbase, many of whom keep emailing about us doing a documentary. But the thing is that New Blood isn't really a publisher anymore, and in a way they were never traditionally a publisher. These days they just make games with a collection of developers, who may also be working on totally unrelated side projects at the same time. I've always wanted to understand more about how exactly New Blood Interactive was run, so recently I sat down to chat with one of its founders, Dave Oshry, a well-known figure online due to his constant jovial promotion of both the studio and their various games. And as New Blood Interactive had just turned 10 years old, it was the perfect excuse. So Dave, an American now working in New Zealand, jumped on a call to tell us all about the games he's worked on, the way New Blood operates, the tremendous difficulty in getting games made, his time working for that company who makes gamer glasses, a failed adaptation of a Dan Reichert novel, and the slow but sure return of classic FPS games. But before all that, it's a birthday, so we have to celebrate. Congratulations, happy birthday. I was about to ask you what you did to celebrate, but I seem to remember some sort of social media post where you snorted Tabasco sauce or something.
Oh, I took, me and my buddy, my co-founder, we did a shot of the world's hottest gin. Hi, kids. So, 10 years ago, me and this dude and that dude right there, we started a little video game company called New Blood Interactive, and 10 years later, we're still here. And to prove to you how much we love you and we hate ourselves, we're going to do a shot of the world's hottest gin right now, featuring one Carolina Reaper Pepper. Cheers to 10 years of New Blood.
Happy birthday, New Blood.
Happy birthday. Fuck. You're only supposed to have an eyedropper full, and we did shots. And it's not the heat so much, is that you immediately get a stomachache, because I think it
Oh no.
I don't know, it goes to your stomach and it just does, it's no good.
Happy birthday, New Blood.
How you doing, Mo?
Happy birthday, New Blood.
Fuck. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm turning 40 this year, and everything hurts all the time.
And you were so nimble when New Blood started. You were just a fresh-faced 29-year-old?
29, 28, 30-ish. There's people who think if they haven't done anything with their life, it's over by 30. I'm I started my company at 30.
Totally, yeah.
So I don't know, man. 40's the new 30. 30's the new 20.
Did you feel that way yourself? Or did you?
No, I've always felt, I feel the same. I'm literally the same person I was when I was 16 years old.
I feel that way too.
Older now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's whatever. We're old, company's getting old. I'm looking forward to retiring now. It's yay.
That's the next plan. But let's go back before we look forward, because it seems like New Blood has also sort of been a lot of different things. It looks like it's a developer, and then it's also a publisher, and now it's a collective. What do you even call yourselves, or how has it changed over the years, and how intentional was that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess now I'd call us a studio, right? We're like a full-blown development studio that does everything. But over the years, I mean, we started after. So me and my buddy Aaron got done working off Rise of the Triad 2013.
Okay, Dave, Rise of the Triad is coming back. Tell us about it.
Well, it is a faithful reboot of the 95 cult classic by Apogee Software. We are Interceptor Entertainment. We are bringing it back to the masses with some fans.
And that was a crazy project. Everybody on that project, it was our first project. Nobody knew what we were doing. It was over budget. It was over time. We all hated each other by the time we were done working with it. I was like, well, I'm never working with Fred and these fucking people ever again. So, obviously I end up working with Fred over and over again for the next 10 years on every collaboration. At the time, we were just like, we don't want to, no more big teams, no more like, let's start our own thing. So we did, and we wanted to, what did we want to do at the time? It was like 2013, 2014. VR was just coming up. Palmer Luckey, the John Carmack, the first Oculus with the box, the DK1 we had, that one that made you super nauseous. And we wanted to do VR for some reason, and we got working on a boxing game that we ended up calling Haymaker, and we wanted to make VR Punch-Out. Because, it just seemed like a perfect fit. I loved, Punch-Out. Super Punch-Out's one of my favorite games of all time, the Super Nintendo one. And we thought, like a cartoony, silly VR Punch-Out game would be a hit. And we got pretty far with it. We were so far that, we showed it to Palmer. Like, we showed it to, like, high-level people at Oculus. And they were like, this is cool. This could be at GDC. And then it just kind of didn't happen. Our programmer, he left to go do other things. As startups do. It's a bunch of friends working together for free. We were all working other jobs at the same time. So New Blood was just kind of like this side thing we were trying to get going, and we were pretty close there. But that it never really materialized. The VR game never got finished, and now it's just like a little 3-second thing in our 10-year anniversary video, which is crazy. But and then after that, we kind of tried to, not even intentionally, kind of started being like a little work for hire publisher type deal. Because, I had been, I was a games writer before that, and I was good at PR and marketing because I did Rise of the Triad. So I was clearly good with getting games like popular on Steam and PC games. And these guys that were working on a game called The Red Solstice reached out, and we didn't do much with them. It was just kind of like a marketing thing between us and Tom and them, and we were like, hey, maybe we could be like a little, like a little indie publisher thing. But we were still trying to develop games. The game we were trying to do was a shmup, a shoot 'em up based on, I don't know if you know Dan Reichert from Giant Bomb.
Yes, unfortunately, I know him very, very, very well.
Yeah. He wrote a very stupid book called Air Force Gator.
I've read it.
Yeah, I have a signed copy of it here somewhere. And he signed it, and he said, hey, Dave, I bet you can't tweet a book, so fuck you. And I actually took a picture of the book and tweeted it. I was like, haha, yes, I can. We were going to make Air Force Gator the video game.
You're kidding.
Swear to God.
And now an excerpt from Air Force Gator, written by Dan Reichert, narrated by Danny O'Dwyer.
After years of personally hunting down Osama bin Laden, Air Force Gator had narrowed down his location to one of two possibilities: the caves of Tora Bora or a high-walled compound in Abbottabad. A thorough raid of the former.
Yeah, it was. That was the vibe we were on in like 2015. Let's make Dan's stupid book into a very stupid video game. We made a bunch of prototypes. None of them never ever really materialized. But this was it. This was going to be like our big game, Air Force Gator, because it was like we were memes, right? It was like a good meeting of the minds. Plus, Dan was, Giant Bomb and stuff. We figured we'd get featured over there, and it would be a whole thing.
He's also a really big Punch-Out fan. I'm not sure if you knew that, but there was like a bar in San Francisco that if you beat Tyson, they'd give you like a bottle of champagne. And I think at a certain stage they stopped doing it because he was winning it so much.
It's just he's the best. Love that guy. But so it didn't really materialize, but in our search to find someone who can work on Air Force Gator, we were on Reddit, and we found a pixel artist, this kid named Nick Clinkscales, who had drawn up pixel art, shoot 'em up of Air Force Gator.
Oh wow!
We found a pixel artist who was somehow a fan of Air Force Gator and knew how to make shoot 'em ups, and we were like, what? We were like, we got to hire this guy. He was like an 18-year-old college kid or something. I reached out. And he was like, yeah, I'd be super, yeah, I definitely want to work on that. But I have this Kickstarter going right now for my own first shoot 'em up called Super Galaxy Squadron. The Kickstarter, the goal was to raise like $200 or something.
Okay.
And we were like, oh, I mean, I can blow that out of the water. So I I took over and I tweeted it and sent some emails out and stuff. And next thing you know, the Kickstarter raised like $2,000 or something. And it was all for charity. It was all for Child's Play.
Oh, terrific.
And we're like, and the deal was we'll publish, your shoot 'em up Super Galaxy Squadron. In return, you'll come work for us and make Air Force Gator, the video game. So the first half happened. We published Super Galaxy Squadron, so it became the first New Blood Presents. And we put it out. We made no money because we said we'd give all the money to charity. So I literally sent a $10,000 check to Child's Play in Seattle, and I was like, "Listen, it's the first thing we did. We made no money, but we did a good thing.
Excellent.
Like, yay, good deed. That'll pay off, right?"
It's a good foundation of a business right there,
Yeah, basically, yeah. Foundation of business. First game, give it all away. So that happened. I don't remember how or why, but Air Force Gator obviously never really materialized. So Nick just kind of jumped back in to do updates for Super Galaxy Squadron. So that became Super Galaxy Squadron EX, Super Galaxy Squadron EX Turbo. Again, none of these games made us any money, but we fake it till you make it. We pretended like we were a publisher and this was our game. At the same time, obviously, I'm working at Gunner Optics, the gaming eyewear company. I started as their marketing guy, and that was my day job. And then by night, I was doing New Blood stuff.
From CU Week, New York, and I'm here with Dave.
Yep. Dave Oshry.
Director of Marketing.
That's me.
With Gunner.
Yep. I don't know if you know this, all that light coming from your TV or your computer monitor, it's bad for you. Gunners takes care of all that. Plus you got the anti-glare coatings, you're filtering that harsh blue light, you got a focusing
Wow, so
power.
by day you're sending them to like influencers and getting them to take pictures.
Literally, by day I was literally sending glasses to every YouTuber and whatever there was and doing. They were like, I had a lot of fun working at Gunner. Some of the coolest bosses I ever had, one of the coolest jobs I ever had. That it was a cool job for sure, but that was my day job. And then by night, trying to figure out what New Blood was going to be. I always wanted to do first-person shooters, right? There was one that popped up on Kickstarter again that looked like it was going to be like the return to everything that we have all ever wanted, and that game was Strafe.
Yes. I remember it.
Yeah, and we all saw that commercial, and we were like, fuck yeah, Quake is back.
Trevor, you're not playing that revolutionary stream combat simulator Strafe, are you?
No. What are you doing?
I want to get some!
No, Trevor. You'll just die.
They didn't tell people it was going to be a roguelike and have like 3 weapons and a whole bunch of other stuff, but the ad was really cool. And I reached out to Tom, and Tom was a commercial director, the director on that game, which is why he was so that's why the ad was so good.
Yeah.
That's what he does for a living. He made TV commercials. I got in touch and I was like, I will literally push your Kickstarter over the line by donating to it at the big level. If we get, on the flip side, work out a deal where I can be like your producer, whatever. Again, that never really materialized. I'm credited as the executive producer because of Kickstarter, but I ended up pushing for Nigel and Devolver to pick that up, thinking that, if they're super successful, I'll get my money back. And then I can, have another credit, like be credited on a first-person shooter that was super retro. Obviously, Strafe comes out, and it's like the real... what's from Back to the Future, where he's like, "Oh, you're not ready for that yet, but your kids are gonna love it."
Right.
You know, because like at the time, what people really needed was Dusk.
Dusk is a first-person shooter released in 2018. Designed by the now well-known and respected developer David Szymanski, Dusk was a love letter to 90s first-person shooters. Quake was probably the creative foundation, but there are splashes of plenty of other classic FPS games in there. Games like Redneck Rampage, Doom, Half-Life, and Stalker. It would be New Blood's breakthrough hit, but not its last.
The story is that I've told a million times is one day I got a DM on Twitter from a guy named David Szymanski, and he only followed 3 people on Twitter at the time, and it was me, John Romero, and Tom Hall. And I was like, damn. I was like, I am in some good company. And he told me he was a huge fan of Rise of the Triad 2013. And I was like, what? There's dozens of us. And he wanted to show me his game. And that game was Dusk. And Dusk, we put out that first trailer. And we didn't think anything of it, but we were very on the nose. It was like, quake with fear, meet your doom, be branded a heretic, rampage past the rednecks was the first line in there. We were very like, hey, this is a game that's an homage to all these 90s shooters. And it went everywhere. It was on like CNET, it was on like all the gaming sites. It had like 100,000 views in the first couple of weeks, and we were like, holy shit, people actually want this. Looking back, it's hilarious. If you go watch that original Dusk reveal trailer, it is the jankiest. Like, it is so funny, but it was enough. People really wanted it. And, and after Dusk, while we were doing Dusk development came a Medieval, and then after Medieval came Ultra Kill and Faith and Gloomwood and Fallen Aces, and the rest is kind of, it's like dominoes, history. After Dusk came all the other boomer shooters, and so like it's really from then on is when New Blood, as people know it, started. But we were trying to, even in the after Medieval and Faith and stuff, we were still very much like a publisher. But as that happened, we were bringing in all these developers, and they were just working internally, and we don't have an office. It's just we use GitHub, Trello, and Discord. Right. These are the only tools we use at New Blood, and we have for the last 3 years. And so we were just a bunch of developers hanging out in a Discord. We have one meeting a week, and everybody was having a lot of feedback on everybody else's games. We never needed a publisher. We never needed an investor. Did our own QA. We do our own marketing, do our own PR. Eventually, we made enough money that I could, the tools that we didn't have, like 3D artists or animators that weren't the developers of the games. Dusk, David did everything himself. For Gloomwood, right. Dylan was doing everything himself. Next thing you know, we've got enough money that I can hire people like Dom and Cody. And next thing you know, we've got proper 3D models. We've got proper first-person animations with Hatsu, proper third-person animations. We're labs, and we turn around. This is probably like, we've got a 5, 6, 7 person QA team. And this probably around 2018, 2019, we turn around and I think we're just the studio now. Some of the people, especially David, was like, I kind of feel bad having my name on the marquee for the game, because this is, there's like a half dozen people. It's a New Blood game. And I've always very much wanted to be like, no, I want to put the main developers' names up there so people know that this is a game by these people. Some people like the fame, and some people, don't want they just don't want anything to do with that. But every New Blood game is essentially a game made by lots of people at this point. New Blood games are New Blood games, but I still very much like to have the marquee developers up there. But at some point we turned around and we realized we're just a full-blown development studio. But we do it all ourselves, because a lot of publishers, they outsource most of their stuff. Right. Like the big publishers, they outsource their QA, they outsource their ports, they outsource their PR and marketing. I'm like, so what do you do? It's a very strange business model, and I don't like it, because I see a lot of small developers get swallowed up that way. But that's not how we do things. So we've gathering of developers, full-blown studio, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of, and it was never a plan. It just happened that way. It was, we started out trying to make games ourselves, and then we couldn't get that going, so we started publishing other people's games the best we could, and then enough people joined us that we could make games as a studio. So the original dream, I guess, has been realized, and 10 years later we are doing very, very well.
How is the sort of makeup of because you're all remote, right? You're all spread out across the world. Obviously, there are people who are working on, like Dylan's working on Gloomwood, right? Like that's his
Yes.
thing. Szymanski obviously has games that he works on, but then he has other, I know he does his own stuff like Iron Lung and things like that, right?
Yeah, David's mostly on his solo journey at this point. You know, like I don't know if there's ever going to be like a Dusk 2. And it's funny, I look at all the stuff that's going on in the industry now with people just growth, sequels, connected universe, multiverse. Like if I would have like just thrown David into like after Dusk, if I would have told Dave we have to do Dusk 2, there never would have been an Iron Lung, Squirrel Stapler, Pony Factory, Butcher's Creek, none of these awesome, there wouldn't be like a Dread XP because like, him and Erdorf like, held up those first two collections and stuff like that. If you don't let people like go do their fun side projects and stuff, like it's amazing what you'd be keeping from the world. And now David's kind of off doing like lots of solo stuff. He works on Gloomwood from time to time, but he's mostly doing solo stuff.
And then what's is he the exception, or do a lot of the folks who work at New Blood also do other things, or are a lot of people full time, or is it sort of all over the place?
So I always tell people like you're free to do whatever you want or work with whoever you want, just as long as it doesn't get in the way of the stuff that like I'm paying you to do. If I pay you full time to work on Gloomwood, like you can do do whatever. If you have side projects, music, solo games, whatever you want to do, just like as long as you get your work done, I don't give a fuck. Like that's always been my thing. If you get your tasks done, if you're assigned to like get this thing done by the end of next week, and you get it done, I don't give a shit what else you do. It's a blessing and a curse because I'm sure, like, it took Erdor for a really long time to finish Faith, and he did like a whole bunch of side projects at the same time. But like also all those side projects are awesome, and it helped grow Erdorf as a name and a developer, in which turn helped Faith become a bigger deal when it finally did come out. If you stifle people's creativity, the stuff they're going to make is not going to be good. Like people ask me what the secret is with New Blood. I'm like, we're friends that make games together and we have fun doing it. That's it. Like there's no drama. We never fight. There's no like we never have any. We never hired anybody. We never fired anybody. Anybody that's end up in a New Blood was always like somebody's friend. It was like, hey, can my friend come work here? I was like, I guess, man, sure. And now we're like 40 people. And I'm like, because I have a really hard time saying no, especially when it's somebody who's talented and stuff. And we've also picked up some castaways from other studios, places like 3D Realms and stuff like that. I'd say it's like this has been my philosophy always and stuff like that. But I don't know how I wouldn't do it any other way. Like if we couldn't succeed making cool shit as friends, doing whatever we want to do, I would rather not be in business. Because when you like our whole thing is we hate money, right? And that doesn't mean we actually hate money. Like we need to pay the people and eat the food, but like we don't chase that. Like you look at shit like Suicide Squad, where it's like we have the IP for the Justice League. We need to make a live service thing with lots of that makes you want to buy skins and money and Fortnite and blah, 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 blah. And like well, yeah, but you could have just made a cool Batman game because they don't hate money. They love money. They only care about money because investors, shareholder, line on chart need go up, and that's, I'm like a historian, I'm reading, last time we talked, I had just gotten through reading Romero's book, and obviously the Ion Storm stuff. And now I'm getting through Ken Williams' book about Sierra. And Jesus Christ, like I forgot a lot of that stuff. And I think a lot of other people have too, because nobody's talked about Sierra in a while. Obviously you know the history very, very well, having done all the Half-Life stuff. Ken wasn't even there by the time Half-Life shipped. And they didn't even sell to a gaming company. They sold to like some giant conglomerate. And then there was like scandals and one guy went to jail and there's all this crazy shit. And it was just like...
Are you reading that as like, business owner, studio owner, sort of cautionary tales? Like it does seem that the trajectory of any big enough developer, especially one that's maybe producing a lot of different games with like a bigger group of people, is to eventually just like growth for the sake of growth's sake, and then at a certain stage you're basically stuck in that mindset because you're putting bad money after good money.
Yeah, I'm reading them as not to do anything with New Blood or see like what not to do. I mean, there's obviously a lot of what not to do and what to do. And I mean, if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it, right? Like everybody knows that, or at least they pretend like they know that. I just love soaking this stuff up as somebody who works in games. How can I make first person shooters and not know everything there is to know about John and Tom and its software and Apogee and all that stuff? How can I run a game studio and not look at what happened with Sierra and Ion Storm and all the other giant high profile, failures that have happened? And how could I want to design games and not look at like what Sid has done over the last 30 years? Has Sid Meier ever made a bad game? We're not going to talk about some of the mobile ones. It's fine.
So does that mean like over the past couple of years you've managed to avoid any embracing that might have happened, or any investment or?
Some people have asked me, like we've had, and I'm just like, no, not for sale, lol. I literally am like, lol, no. Like I'm flattered, but like for the most part, I think people aren't either. Just know that we're not the kind of company who's into that. I'm pretty sure like people would be afraid to ask to buy us because I would literally screenshot the email and tweet it and be like, lol, go fuck yourself.
Or at least hold on to it, because I bet that there's a couple of those Embracer ones around now would probably would get a couple of retweets.
There was never any, no, we never had any talks with anybody like that. We never talked to any Embracer people. I know a lot of people at studios that Embracer bought who were very excited, and now they're very not excited. That's the thing to me. Like people ask me how we're doing, and I'm like, our developers are happy, our players are happy, I'm fucking happy. I sleep like a baby, and that's it. Like there's not like this is your life every day. If your whole life is focused on like what could be instead of what is, then what are you doing? You're not living, And like some of us are lucky enough to get to live life
on a beach in New Zealand.
Yeah, on a beach in New Zealand, make games with our friends or make video game documentaries with your friends.
Yeah.
I imagine you and your crew are just a bunch of friends, because that's how good shit gets made. And that's how the best games get made, by the teams that have been together.
Yeah, that Romero book, right? You're just like the good games stop when the friendship stops. You know what I mean? You can see it right there.
Yep, every single time it was like, how does the studio how did they suddenly make a bad game? It's like, well, you look at none of the people who made the game that you like are there anymore. It's like there's something called the Peter principle, and I think it's a real thing where it says you will be promoted to your level of incompetence. So people get promoted and they keep getting promoted, and then one day they're like, oh fuck, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna pretend I know what I'm doing because I'm getting paid a lot of money. And I've seen that happen with so many people.
Amen.
People who, because not everybody. It's funny. It's like, hey, you're really good. You're a really good artist. Congratulations, you're now managing the art department. It's like, what? I don't want to manage the art department. I just want to be an artist. Well, too bad. You've been promoted because you're really good, and we're going to promote. You're going to pay me more, right? Nah, just more responsibility. It's like that's another thing. We've got like this obsession with promotion, and it's like a lot of people just want to be paid more to do the same job that they're good at.
That's the reason why, right? I mean, I'm sure it's ego for some people, but for the most part, it seems like yes, it's a
some
reward.
People want to be promoted. Some people want to be like in charge of things, but a lot of people just want, like a lot of animators just want to animate, and they want to be paid to animate, and like they're happy to do more work and better work and be like, good job. Here's the next thing you got to animate, and you've been here for a few years now, so here's a pay raise and here's a bonus. The game came out. Here's a big bonus. Not everybody wants to be the animation lead and have to manage all the other animators and talk about how they should set up everything in a big boardroom. It's like, because then the job's not fun anymore. Some people do, some people don't. But the problem is when you're at a big company, there's always like these pathways that you have to, you start. It's like the game of life where your piece starts here, and then depending how things goes, you move a few spaces, and this is where you go. You can't go off the line, because the line is how the company is set up. The company has set you up, so the longer you're there, the further you move down the little line thing, and eventually you get to a place and somebody rolls the dice and you fall off the board. I just made that up, and it sounds pretty good.
But I also think that you see it reflected in even when people are good at their jobs and they get to a certain stage, that then that same motivation pushes them out, like be it at Blizzard or what we're Bethesda game studios at the moment. Seems like they've had a lot of people leaving in the past
Bethesda,
few years.
it's, man, I could talk about that for a long time.
Right.
It's the people are like, oh, I miss the days. It's another thing. It's like the people who made Morrowind and Daggerfall and Oblivion are not there anymore. Todd's still there, but like, you know, a lot of people aren't. It's not the same company, but then, you know, people seem to say, oh, but these indie things will spring up from the layoffs and stuff like that. I'm like, not if there ain't no money.
Dude, is there any more room left? Like, there seems to be such an abundance of games coming. Am I crazy? Like, it seems like the market maybe isn't growing much. And
I've been saying this forever. It's an embarrassment of riches of games, especially in the indie scene. My backlog is enormous. I don't have time to play anything. I'm playing Final Fantasy Rebirth right now, and I feel bad because I really want to be playing Pacific Drive. I want to be playing Blood West. There's so many games that I want to play.
Don't start Balatro. It'll stop everything.
Yeah. Oh no. I was at Leon, the Medieval developer's house last week. I was crashing at his place when I went to a Queens of the Stone Age show in Wellington, and he's addicted. I would wake up, I would get out of his guest bedroom and like, look, he's in there like clicking. He tried to explain it to me, and I was like, I think I'm good. It looks like the most addictive. Like, who knew all the kids really wanted was poker all this time? Yeah.
Somebody needs to tell them about like cigarettes, like everything's secular.
The kids need to start smoking. So to answer your original question, no, we are not for sale. I am not interested. If anybody's listening to this podcast trying to be like, I wonder if the New Blood guy wants to sell his company, I do not. I mean, they say everybody's got a price, but like, nah, sure. Like, if you offered me like $500 million to sell, I'd be like, okay,
yeah.
Like, cause that, like, but then what do you do with 500? I don't understand. Like, there was a joke. I think it was Sports Illustrated. Like, asked me, what would you do with $10 million? And I'd be like, I'd make a $9 million trailer.
Here's a question on the sort of other side of this equation, right? Which you guys have sort of protected yourselves from this largely because you self-publish your own stuff. But obviously, especially in the indie space in the past 2 or 3 years, just the deals that people are getting, the lack of money actually at the moment, just outright for deals right now, seems to be a big problem.
We need Kickstarter back.
I was just, funnily enough, because we were talking about this with our own game, I was wondering at a certain stage, I was like, well, self-publishing certainly seems like the only option now for a lot of people. But weirdly, Kickstarter has become sort of uncool or unusable. Or
it got to, it's, you know, the bubble burst. Like, it was so cool. And I loved that time because I would throw money at anything that looked cool because it was so cool. Like, you know, it's like, oh, cool, my dog can be in this game if I give you $500. Sick. I have so many Kickstarter cameos. If you look at like my Moby games,
is your Moby games page sort of infected with Kickstarter ones? Yeah,
ton of special things because like you get to help developers, you get like a cool thing. Like my dog has a really big cameo in the Leisure Suit Larry reboot.
You're fucking kidding me.
No, he literally, you know, I don't know if you remember the dog that walks up and pees on you in the original game. In the reboot, it's my dog, my beagle. And then there's a whole line where the narrator said, "That's Dave Oshry's dog, Bear." Like, well, he didn't have to.
This cost you $20,000.
Bear's owner, Dave Oshry, lets Bear wander around on the street. It could go feral or rabid, and it could have been circumvented.
Can you please use smaller words?
Some of those games were so loaded with Kickstarter backers, like they'd all be characters in the game.
Funny.
You walk into Lefty's bar, and all the patrons are different people that like donated. They went. It was a shit show, but it was a really fun time, you know. And if it wasn't for that Kickstarter and Fig and all that stuff, like, you know, In Exile and Obsidian wouldn't have, you know, bounced back and gotten acquired.
Yeah, right. So I guess what I'm wondering is, like, you know, you've avoided a lot of this publisher stuff. Have you heard from like friends in the industry, cohorts and stuff that like the deals are getting worse? Like, because I've even heard that like some of the publishers are hurting themselves and it's sort of coming downstream, right?
Yeah, I still can't believe. So like on the indie publishing side, around 2015, post Hotline Miami Devolver boom, everybody was trying to start an indie PC publisher because they're just like, we can get games on Steam and we'll make millions of dollars. And then like 90% of those publishers are gone now. Because you got to remember, Steam in 2014, 2015 wasn't like it is now. You need to know someone at Valve to even have your game on there. They helped you with everything. There was like 500 games on Steam at the time. There was no green light yet. There was no reviews yet. So it was totally different. I have no idea when 50% became the norm for the publisher take. I remember back when I would talk to like Nigel and Devolver and stuff back in the earlier days, and 70-30 was the split, and you had to earn that 30%. You're 30 as a publisher. For that 30%, you had to do dev support, QA, investment, and all that, and you had to make that game sell. And hopefully, a lot of publishers, they do a recoup of their investment and then get the make their money off of that 30%, and that would be enough. Nowadays, it's like these indie publishers will do the bare minimum and expect 50% of the dev's revenue. And I get pitched games every day, and we don't accept pitches. We're not a publisher anymore, but people send them to me anyway, hoping and praying that New Blood will work on their game. And I always respond and give feedback, let the devs play it. I often pass them off to publisher friends who I do know that are trying to do good deals and investment. And a lot of times I recommend self-publishing. I'm like, listen, man, if you need help getting your game set up on Steam, the best things to do, how to use Steamworks, good PR agencies to talk to, some tips on social media and shit like that. I'll help, dude. My inbox is open, and I will charge you nothing, because I would rather people self-publish and keep 100% and keep their IP and make a decent amount of money than give 50% to a publisher who's going to do fuck all besides put their name on your game. I've seen games that are successful where all of the credit and the name goes to the publisher. Oh, it's a game by this publisher or that publisher, and nobody remembers the dev, and their deal doesn't extend to a second game. So they made a mildly successful game with one indie publisher, and then after that, they are right back to square one on their next game. And that's not how it should be. If you make a good or decent game, you should be able to make a better, bigger, or more successful game the second time around. And it's just, it's everything's so upside down and backwards. And like, it's easy for me to say, right? Because like, we are successful, we completely DIY, we did it our own way. But let's be real, Ultra Kill's been a big fucking hit, and it pays for everything else. We were doing fine before Ultra Kill, but then Ultra Kill came along, and like, I could retire tomorrow. Like, so like, anybody who's had a hit movie, a hit song, a hit album, a hit game, like when you have a well and true hit, like a hit, that's kind of, you don't need to do no more. So easy for us to say, right? Because we've got one of those. We've got our Undertale. We've got our Hotline Miami. But like, it's wild out there, and it's crazy, because it's like, did nobody think this would happen after the pandemic? Everybody made all this money during the pandemic, and did you just think it would just continue that way forever? Like the world wouldn't go back to normal, that things wouldn't come back down to earth? Have you never studied how markets work after booms and recessions? Like, did nobody go to take business classes? And there's these people in like the highest positions who should, like, how did you get there if you don't know how business work? What do you mean you spent all the money? What do you mean there's no money? You made billions of dollars. Where did it go? So to me, it's crazy, but I'll get people be like, oh, Dave, you don't understand how, you don't understand how stuff works. I'm like, I think I do.
You stopped climbing, man. If you got to the top, you would have seen that read the tablets, and you would have known that actually it doesn't matter how much money you make. It just matters how good your reputation is.
They're not letting me into the Illuminati meetings where they tell you how stuff really works.
While Dusk may have been the first big pop for New Blood, the next one was even louder. Ultra Kill, a frenetic love letter to 90s arena shooters, has now got about 95,000 Steam reviews and a rating of overwhelmingly positive. And this from an early access launch in 2020. It's still in early access, but clearly the players don't seem to mind. Oddly enough, early access seems to fit with New Blood in the way they talk to their community, despite the fact that single-player first-person games are generally not thought of as good candidates for that model. Gloomwood, a terrific Lovecraftian stealth game which echoes the design of the immersive sim Thief, has been enjoying its own early access since 2022, but they've got plenty of other bullets in the chamber too. So you guys are, I mean, I'm just trying to think of games that aren't out yet. Obviously, Fallen Aces isn't out yet. And then you've got a couple of other bits and bobs in the can coming out.
So the big one, obviously, right now is Fallen Aces. We're looking at early access this spring. We're bringing it to PAX East with like a giant booth.
Awesome.
We're all dressing up as goons and stuff. We're building like a giant town. It's gonna be so silly. We're going all out. So that's the first like new thing for sale that we've released in a while. Obviously, Ultra Kill. Working towards the end of that, we did layer 7, so we still got to finish, the last few layers of Ultra Kill. Gloomwood, the new Underport district, will be out in the next few months. We're taking you into the sewers, which we know people really, really looking forward to. It's a massive district. We're bringing back like the water mechanics, and we have rat AI now, and you can like lure them with cheese and stuff. We're getting some Dishonored stuff in there, and we're bringing back the ability to like flush guards down the toilet, and they'll appear like in other parts of the sewer because of the way the water were like, sim shit.
You got to appeal to the skibbity toilet kids, right?
Yeah, it's so good. Now we're expanding into like doing more merch, more physical records. We're trying to start a record label for all our soundtracks, and then some original artists. Well, we're working with like Laced and stuff like that to get like the Dusk and a Medieval soundtracks out, Faith, Ultra Kill, then a couple of original albums from some of our friends, and like make sure that like we're selling vinyls, tapes, CDs, posters, T-shirts, like the shit that we like to collect that I want in my house. we are going to sell that to people. We're finally doing the Dusk Collector's Edition, the big box. We're bringing Faith to Japan this year. We're doing a Faith Japanese localization and publishing in Japan, and we're taking it over there to Bit Summit. And it's basically an excuse to go hang out in Japan, which is why people ask, like, why do you do what we do? It's like, because we're trying to have fun. I'm like, literally just like, why are you doing that? I'm like, because I want to take the whole crew to Japan and hang out in Japan for a few weeks. And Faith has a big Japanese fan base, so fuck it, let's do that, New Blood's very much like a band that goes on tour. That's kind of how we feel,
You like the work, but you also say you want to retire at some stage. So you don't like it. You don't like it that much.
I think. Well, another thing is because the last 10 years have been kind of a blur.
Right.
I'm turning 40, and I don't remember like being 34, 35, 36, 37. It's been a blur of going to video game shows, releasing games, putting out updates, yelling and screaming on social media at the top of my lungs, buy my games, buy our games, buy our games, New Blood, Dusk, Medieval, Ultra Kill, body pillows, whatever, just doing whatever, like, if you want something to be successful, you got to do it all the time.
Yeah.
Like foregoing any sort of personal relationship, any sort of stability. I've moved houses, countries. I've gone broke like 3 times. And now after 10 years where we have well and truly, as I can say, made it, like I am finally taking like an assessment of, my life and where I'm at, and I'm turning 40, and I'm like, okay, I spent the last 10 years building this thing. I need to spend the next 10 years packing it away and retiring so I can nap, so I can rest, so I can sleep. Otherwise, you just go forever.
Yeah. Until the 20th anniversary. Hopefully by then, when we talk on the podcast, you'll be retired. You'll have another hit. You'll be sick of touring the world. Your house will be full of vinyl, and you'll be ready to enjoy your days on the beach.
We will see. We will see. I will set a calendar invite for 10 years from now.
Dude.
And we will see. Let's do that. Could you imagine? It'll pop up.
It's gonna be very grim when like I've died or something,
The apocalypse will have happened, and like a beep will come up on a computer in the ashes far away, and I'll crawl over to my Fallout style computer terminal, and it'll say, "You have a Teams meeting with Danny O'Dwyer."
New Blood's games are available on PC and best played on a CRT monitor using one of those mouses with the balls. Remember those? Remember picking fluff out of them every couple of weeks? Massive thanks to Dave for taking the time to talk to me. I'm already looking forward to our follow-up interview in 2034. Dear Dwyery is produced by Jesse Guarascia, and I just know that he'd really appreciate it if you supported this show and all of NoClip's work by either sharing this episode, reviewing our show on the podcast app you're using right now, or maybe even becoming a patron over at patreon.com/NoClip. And just so you know, I broke an internet marketing rule there. Apparently you're supposed to only ask for one call to action, because if you give people a choice of like 2 or 3 of them, then they don't do any of them. But I trust you, dear listener. I think you're an intelligent adult. I trust you to think it over and make the call that's right for you. In any case, we'll be back again soon with more stories from the world of video games. Until next time.